Thank you so much, Jill, and thank you for all you do for our community. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan. Nice to meet you this morning collectively again, and good to see you if you've been here 1,000 times before. I wanted to say before I start today, I was just in the office before church praying and thinking and getting quiet and still before we did this together. But I was thinking about how church, how coming here on a Sunday, how being a part of the life of this community can really just be kind of a more ethical form of entertainment that we all participate in. And it can be much more than that. If that's what it is to you, that's fine and that's wonderful. We're good people here. No one's going to ask you to do anything crazy or harmful to yourself. But there is also a deeper side to this, a layer below that, where our walk with God can be something that actually guides us in everyday life. And I hope that is what we are learning as we come here week in, week out. It is such a joy to be your pastor. And thank you for letting me continue to do this. As the Thanksgiving holiday approaches, I find myself thinking a lot about the topic of tradition. What is tradition? Tradition are all of the things that we do that we don't really know why we do them, but we just keep doing them. These things often pop up at the holidays more than anywhere else throughout the year. I am reminded of a story that I think I heard first in college about a young girl, and she is watching her mother prepare the holiday ham for Christmas dinner. And the mother takes out the ham, and she cuts the ends off of the ham before placing it in a pan to put in the oven. And the girl asks her mother, "Mom, why do you cut the ends off of the ham? Does it have something to do with the juices soaking into the ham, making it taste better?" Something like that. And her mom said, "Honey, come to think about it, I have no idea why I cut the ends off the ham. That's just what my mother always did. Why don't we reach out to her and ask her why?" So the little girl gets out her phone and texts Grandma and says, "Grandma, why do you cut the ends off of the ham?" And the grandma says, "Sweetie, I have no idea. That's what my mother always did. Why don't we call great-grandmother? Why don't we call Nana and ask her why we cut the ends off of the ham?" So the little girl calls her Nana and says, "Nana, why do you cut the ends off of the ham before Christmas dinner? Does it have something to do with the ham being more juicy? What is it all about?" And she said, "Honestly, sweetie, I never owned a pan big enough to put the whole ham in. I always just cut the ends off so that we could eat, so that it would fit in the oven." That story illustrates perfectly what traditions are like and how those traditions pass from generation to generation. And today I want to address this tension for a few minutes, this tension between tradition and evolving, or tradition and adaptability. You might even like to think of it in your mind as religion, the tension between religion and spirituality. It's a very broad way of thinking about it. But when we do this, we discover some things about ourselves, and it makes us ask ourselves some hard questions. Jesus speaks to this topic in the Gospel of Mark in the 7th chapter. It says this. You may try to read along with me on the screen. Good luck, that's really small. It's in your programs, though. Jesus said to the religious leaders, "Rightly did Isaiah prophesy about you hypocrites, as it is written, they honor me with their lips, but their heart is far away from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines the traditions of men." Neglecting the commandment of God, you hold on to the traditions of men. He also said you are experts at setting aside the commandment of God and clinging to your tradition. For Moses said, honor your father and mother, and the one who speaks evil of father or mother is certainly to be put to death. Wow, that's a lot, Jesus. But you say if a person says to his father or his mother, whatever I have to help you is korban, that is, dedicated to God, you no longer teach him to do anything for his father or mother. You make the command of God of no effect by your traditions, which you have handed down. And you do many things such as that. You make the commands of God, Jesus says, of no effect by your traditions which you have handed down, and you do many things such as that. Reading this passage and many others like it begged me to ask myself a challenging question. What am I believing today that no longer serves myself or others? What are you believing today, right now, in this moment, in this place? What are you still believing that is no longer serving you and serving others? It's very easy to just stay shallow with that question. I could say, oh, my beliefs are changing all the time. I recently made the switch from Apple to Android and back to Apple again, and now I'm back home. I recently decided to start cleaning my floors with a Swiffer wet jet instead of a mop. I believe that is good. Those things are all great. But I'm talking about the deeper things. Particularly the things that you believe about God and yourself and others. We carry these things around with us all day. They impact every choice that we make. They are the version of ourselves that we bring to the world, but we're so good at hiding it. We have thoughts, beliefs, that we order our lives based on, like, well, hell is certainly a real place. I know this because they have a room there with my name on it that is waiting for me. I'm stupid. I'm ugly. I don't matter. We think things like this all the time. Don't stare at me like you don't. I know you do. I must do a ceremonial washing of my hands before each meal, or God will be angry at me. I must cut off the ends of the ham before I put it in the oven, or it's going to suck. No, it's going to taste the same either way. It's time to cook the whole ham. What are we believing today that no longer serves us or others? We must be open to truth wherever it leads us. Charles Darwin observed, the founding father of evolutionary theory. He said, it is not the strongest species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one most adaptable to change. How many of you want to survive this morning? Guess what? You're going to be dead if you don't learn how to adapt. You will become extinct. Period. Don't post that as a soundbite on YouTube. That sounds so dark and horrible. We must be adaptable. We must adapt to truth when it comes. And so what our great-grandma and Jesus and Darwin and Galileo and Copernicus and Newton and Einstein and many, many others trying to get across to us? The same fundamental idea that traditions should always be tempered with truths. Tradition should always be tempered with truths. It is possible to honor your traditions, the traditions of your elders, the traditions of those that mean something to you. It is possible to honor those traditions and yet still be a spiritual, adaptive person. It truly is, I promise you. But when truth arrives for you and you alone, you cannot ignore it. You cannot deny it and think that you will move forward. That is where you will stop. That is where the species of you will begin its slow, steady decline. Why? Because something massive is at stake here. This is important because we are talking about that by which we determine every action to and with one another. We are talking about consensus reality. And that is the only reality that there truly is as it comes to living together, is one that we all agree to. And when we start defining reality based on traditions, rather than what truth is, we are headed for darkness in all the ways, for all the things, for everyone, everywhere. The earth used to be flat, and now we know that it's not flat anymore. Deal with it. Get over it. Adapt. Change. If you truly want to believe you live under a giant terrarium, your life is going to be weird. It's not going to be good to you or anyone else, because you're not living according to the truth, the observable truth. Skin color used to determine a person's destiny, and in some ways it still does. We are still working on that as a species. But we are aspiring to live in a world now where skin color does not determine a person's destiny. If you don't like that, go to another planet, because we have decided to believe that now, because of something in us that led us there. And that is the truth now, and that is where we must live forward from. Some men love women, and some women love men. But did you know that some men also love men, and some women also love women? It's called love. It's not something ugly. It's not something aberrant. So can we mind our own business and maybe if we work really hard, actually be happy that someone found love? Some people in the world right now are poorer than they've ever been. They are one bad paycheck away from collapse. And at the same time, there are others in this world that are far more wealthy than they've ever been. But they've become wealthy at the expense of the poor, who are getting poorer. We are right in the middle of this right now as a species. This is one of the areas that we have not reached our tipping point in yet. We still truly believe there's not enough money in this world for everyone. And you know what? that is just as true as the earth being flat. There is enough for everyone. And the minute we adopt that truth, we start to live toward it. Our entire lives reorient and they start to move toward it. Victor Hugo once wrote that nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And so my prayer today for us is that we would continue to be an evolving people who refuse to pass on ideas whose times have come. Evolving spiritually does not mean we have to leave our traditions behind. It simply means that we're widening our lens on what truth is. Because that's how truth works. It grows. We evolve and truth seems to evolve to us. This is all about widening our lens to include better ideas. So may we be a people of discovery more than dogma. And when it is time to change, and we know that it is time to change, may we just give ourselves to it. Knowing that God is both the cause and the effect of that change. And that God is with us in every step we take toward what is good. Would you stand? As we move into a time of reflection now where you are invited to move about the room, we have kneelers you may pray at the back of the room if you wish. We also, speaking of tradition, we have a tradition of receiving the Eucharist every Sunday here at Church in Bethesda. Perhaps you grew up hearing it called communion. Communion is a little different here at Church in Bethesda in that you need not ever have to come back here again to be able to receive of these elements today. You might go to another church, you might go to this church, you might go to no church at all. You are welcome at God's table this morning. These elements do not represent something that we earn. They represent something we are freely given. So please take communion during this time. We also have some tables here with pens and balloons. And on each of these tables are some little slips of paper that have a question on them. It says, I used to believe blank, and now I believe blank. And what I love about this, Jan made these up. There is no period at the end of either of those statements. I think there's something profound in that. I used to believe blank, now I believe blank. We want to invite you as an act of faith, as a spiritual practice, to write down these areas where you are evolving, where you are changing, even if it's scary, even if it feels like uncharted internal territory. We want to invite you to participate in that. These balloons here represent how we evolve and how we expand. And if you have the desire to pop one, maybe just wait till after the service, because that's what I'm thinking about with those pens there. All right. So let's move about the room and reflect. Let me pray for us before we do. Almighty God, thank you.